The sand exploded upward as Riley's body slammed into the arena floor for the third time in 2 minutes. She rolled sideways, spitting blood and grit, just as Krethos's massive fist cratered the ground where her head had been. The Phyrexian champion, towering at 9 feet with obsidian scales glinting under the spotlights, all 4 arms spread wide as he roared at the crowd above. His bone spikes rattled down his spine, amber eyes blazing with predatory excitement. Riley pushed herself up on shaking arms, her ribs screaming. Above them, the crowd of thousands erupted in a deafening mixture of cheers and jeers that made the metal walls vibrate. The betting screens lining the upper tiers flashed with constantly updating odds, and those odds were not in her favor.
Stay down, human,
Krethos bellowed, his voice like grinding stone. He stalked forward slowly, savoring the moment, 2 of his clawed hands flexing, while the other 2 gestured grandly to the audience.
You have entertained enough. Accept defeat with dignity.
Riley wiped blood from her split lip and laughed, a sound that came out more like a wheeze. Dignity? In this shithole? She staggered to her feet, swaying. You clearly don't know humans. In the observation booth high above, Quark the Thulian betting master's crystalline body practically vibrated with agitation. His 6 segmented legs clicked rapidly against the metal floor as he studied the holographic displays floating before him. His compound red eyes reflected hundreds of tiny images of the arena below, and his bronze chitinous plates scraped together as he turned to his associate. This is a disaster. Quark's mandibles clicked rapidly, voice sharp with panic. 83% of bets are on Krethos. If the human goes down in the next minute, we lose everything on the time spread. Beside him, Venix the Silthar announcer floated in her energy field, her serpentine body coiling and uncoiling with anxiety. Her iridescent, purple-silver scales rippled as her 3 vertical green eyes fixed on the arena below. The bioluminescent patterns across her body pulsed orange with stress. "She's done!" Venix hissed, her voice carrying an edge of disappointment. Humans always talk big, but their bodies are so fragile. 3 hits, and she can barely stand. Down in the arena, Krethos lunged forward with terrifying speed for something so massive. All 4 arms reached for Riley, claws extended. She ducked under the first 2, twisted away from the third, but the 4th caught her shoulder and sent her spinning. She hit the sand hard, rolling with the momentum. The crowd roared louder. Someone threw garbage from the stands. It clattered against the metal walls. Riley's vision swam, black spots dancing at the edges. She could taste copper and sand, and her own failure. "Get up!" A voice cut through the chaos. Human, male, urgent. Riley's eyes snapped to the edge of the arena, where Dax stood, pressed against the barrier, his weathered face tight with concern. The veteran tactician gripped the metal bars, knuckles white. His gray eyes locked onto hers. "Riley, pattern 3, Dax shouted.
He's showing off. Handing back the Gazing's accurate lead. Use it.
Krethos was indeed showing off. The massive Phyrexian champion had his back partially turned to Riley, all 4 arms raised to the crowd, soaking in their adoration. His bone spikes rattled in a display of dominance, scales gleaming under the harsh spotlights. Riley's hand touched something in the sand. Cold. Metal. She glanced down, a piece of debris from an earlier fight. Broken blade, maybe 8 inches long. Her fingers closed around it. She stood, not staggering this time. Steady. The crowd's noise shifted, confusion rippling through the stands. Betting screens flickered as people hesitated on their final wagers. Krethos turned slowly, amber eyes narrowing as he saw Riley upright and still. Still standing. Impressive endurance for your kind. He dropped into a fighting stance, all four arms positioned for a killing blow.
But endurance means nothing without...
Riley took a single step forward. Just one step. Nothing special about it. Her boot pressed into the black sand, weight shifting, body coiled. But something in that step made Krethos pause, made the crowd go suddenly, eerily quiet, made Quark's mandibles stop clicking in the observation booth. Because that wasn't the step of someone losing. That was the step of someone who'd been figuring things out. "Oh no," Venix whispered, her serpentine body going rigid in her floating field. Her bioluminescent patterns shifted from orange stress to yellow alarm. She's been studying him. Quark's compound eyes widened across all their facets. "What?" "The falls." Venix's three green eyes tracked Riley's movement. "She let him hit her. She's been mapping his range." Down on the arena floor, Krethos charged. The massive Vrexian crossed the distance in 3 thundering strides, sand exploding under his weight, all 4 arms reaching to crush the human into paste. Riley moved. Not away. Forward. She slid under his first 2 arms, the broken blade in her hand flashing upward. It caught the joint where his lower left arm connected to his body, the gap between obsidian scales she'd spotted during her second fall. The blade sank in. Not deep, but enough. Krethos roared in pain and shock, his lower left arm spasming. Riley was already moving, using his own momentum against him. She grabbed his upper right arm with her free hand and swung her body around, boots slamming into the back of his knee. The champion stumbled. Impossible. The crowd gasped. Nothing made Krethos stumble. Riley didn't stop. She wrenched the blade free, rolled across his back as he tried to reach her, and drove it into the exposed joint where his spine connected to his pelvis. Another weak spot she'd memorized while eating sand. Krethos went down to one knee, bellowing. His bone spikes thrashed wildly. One, nearly catching Riley as she vaulted over them. She landed in the sand 3 feet away, breathing hard, but standing firm. The arena went absolutely silent. Then erupted into chaos. In the observation booth, Quark's entire crystalline body turned from bronze to bright red, his version of going pale with shock. His 6 legs scrabbled at the metal floor as he watched the betting screens go haywire. "This isn't. She's not supposed to."
The odds didn't account for.
"Tactics," Venix breathed, her scales rippling with something between horror and fascination. "The human has tactics." Krethos pushed himself up, 3 arms functional, 1 hanging limp. Amber eyes blazed with fury now instead of amusement. Blood, dark and thick, dripped from the wounds. "Lucky strikes," he snarled, voice rough with pain. "You're still just meat." "Yeah," Riley agreed, circling him slowly. The broken blade glinted in her hand. "Meat that thinks." She feinted left. Krethos lunged that direction with his 3 good arms. Riley went right, slid past him, and drove her blade into the back of his lower right knee as she passed. Another joint. Another weak point. Krethos crashed forward onto both knees this time, roaring. 2 arms down. Mobility compromised. The crowd was a thunderstorm of noise now. Shock, outrage, excitement, terror. Fortunes were changing hands by the second as bets flipped wildly. The betting screens couldn't keep up. Riley didn't approach. She stood back, watching Krethos struggle to rise, watching him realize that his size advantage was now a liability, all that mass on wounded joints. "Here's the thing about humans," Riley said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. Blood ran down her chin from her split lip, and she was pretty sure at least 2 ribs were cracked. But her voice was steady. "We're not the strongest, not the fastest, not the toughest." Krithos finally got one leg under himself, pushing up with his 2 good arms. His obsidian scales were darker, now wet with his own blood. Bone spikes drooped instead of rattled. "But we're really, really good at breaking things that are stronger than us," Riley finished. "It's kind of our whole thing." She moved again. This time, Krethos was ready, swinging both good arms in a wide arc meant to catch her regardless of direction. But Riley didn't dodge left or right. She dropped flat to the sand, letting the arms pass overhead, then sprang up inside his guard. The broken blade found his throat. Not deep enough to kill. This was still an arena match with rules about honor kills, but enough to draw blood and make a point. Riley pressed the blade just hard enough that Krithos froze, amber eyes wide. "Yield," Riley said quietly. Just to him, not the crowd. For 3 heartbeats nothing happened. The entire arena held its breath. Then Krethos's remaining good arms spread wide, palms open. The universal gesture of surrender. The crowd exploded. Half cheering, half screaming in fury, all of them absolutely losing their minds. The noise was a physical force that rattled Riley's teeth. She stepped back, let the blade drop to the sand, and nearly fell over. Adrenaline was wearing off fast, replaced by pain and exhaustion. Her legs shook. Dax was suddenly there, having vaulted the barrier the moment Krethos yielded. The veteran tactician caught Riley before she collapsed, supporting her weight. "You magnificent idiot," he said, grinning despite himself. "That was either genius or suicide." "Little of both," Riley managed. Then she looked up at Krethos, who was being swarmed by medical staff. The massive Vrexian was staring at her with something that might have been respect in his amber eyes, or maybe just confusion. In the observation booth, Quarek was having what could only be described as a complete breakdown. His crystalline body had gone through every color in the spectrum and was now flickering between them rapidly. His mandibles clicked incoherently as he watched the financial readouts scroll past. "We're ruined," he whispered. "Completely ruined. The house lost everything on that match. Everything." Venix, however, was watching the crowd. Her serpentine body coiled thoughtfully as her 3 green eyes tracked the chaos below. The bioluminescent patterns on her scales pulsed with a new color, not stress orange or alarm yellow, but calculating purple. "Not ruined," she said slowly. "Look at them." Quarek's compound eyes focused on the crowd. They were going insane. Arguments were breaking out. Fights erupted in the stands. The betting screens were on fire with new wagers being placed for future matches. "They want more," Venix continued, her voice taking on an edge of excitement. "They've never seen anything like this. A human using pure tactics to defeat a champion 4 times her size?" Her scales shimmered. "We just found our new main attraction." Down in the medical bay, Riley sat on an examination table while Torva, the Mandorian medical officer, prodded her ribs with surprising gentleness for someone with such thick gray-green hide. The stocky alien's 6 eyes, arranged in 2 neat rows, examined Riley from multiple angles simultaneously, while her 3-fingered hands worked with practiced efficiency. Her tusks jutted from her lower jaw, and she had to angle her head carefully to avoid poking Riley with them. 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising, minor internal bleeding, Torva reported, her voice gravelly but clinical. "For a human who just fought Krethos, you're in remarkably good condition." All 6 eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Almost like you avoided the worst of his attacks deliberately." Funny how that works, Riley said through gritted teeth as Torva pressed something cold and stinging against her ribs. Dax stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the door. How long until she can move? I can stabilize her enough to walk in 8 minutes, Torva said. Her tusks clicked together thoughtfully. But she shouldn't fight again for at least 6 days. Her body needs time to... The door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. The heavy metal slab shrieked as it was torn from its hinges and clattered across the floor. Sparks showered from severed electronics. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the medical bay in harsh red. 3 figures stood in the ruined doorway. 2 were massive Vrexian warriors, each nearly as large as Krethos, their obsidian scales gleaming dark red in the emergency lighting. All 4 of their arms held weapons, plasma blades that hummed with deadly energy. Between them stood something worse. Zarleth was a Vrexian, but different. Smaller, only 7 feet tall, but her scales were bone-white instead of black, making her look like death itself. Her amber eyes were cold calculation rather than battle rage. The ridge of bone spikes down her spine were filed to razor points. She wore no armor, just dark cloth that made her pale scales stand out even more. "The human who embarrassed my brother," Zarleth said, her voice like ice scraping stone. All 4 of her clawed hands flexed slowly. "I'm told you have tactics." Riley tried to stand, gasped in pain, and immediately sat back down. "Your brother's fine." He yielded. "Match is over." "The match is over," Zarleth agreed, stepping into the medical bay. Her 2 warriors fanned out, blocking the door. "Honor is satisfied by arena law. But family honor?" Her bone spikes rattled. "That requires blood." Dax moved instantly, putting himself between Zarleth and Riley. The veteran human was older, scarred, but his stance was that of someone who'd survived too many fights to count. "You want to go through me first?" Zarleth studied him with those cold amber eyes. "If necessary." Torva, the Mandorian medical officer, stepped away from Riley, all 6 eyes widening in alarm. Her gray-green hide seemed to pale slightly. "This is a medical facility. Arena law states—" "Arena law," one of the Vrexian warriors interrupted, his voice a rumble. "Ended when the match did." Riley's mind raced. She was injured, barely mobile, in a locked room with 3 heavily armed aliens who wanted her dead. Dax was good, but he was one human against 3 Vrexians. The odds were not in their favor. But then again, the odds hadn't been in her favor in the arena either. She looked at Torva, looked at the medical equipment scattered across the metal tables, looked at the examination table she was sitting on, built heavy to handle alien patients of various sizes, looked at the green glowing medical pods lining the walls. "Hey, Dax," Riley said casually, like they were discussing the weather. "Remember that thing we did on Cronus Station?" Dax's eyes flicked to her, then around the room. A grin split his weathered face. "The medical bay thing?"
The medical bay thing.
Zarleth's bone spikes rattled with impatience. "What are you—" Riley grabbed the metal tray beside her and hurled it at the nearest medical pod. The tray shattered the pod's glass front. Green fluid exploded outward, splashing across the floor. The liquid immediately began smoking where it hit the metal. "That's colantine healing gel," Torva gasped, scrambling backward. "It's highly corrosive outside containment." "I know," Riley said, already grabbing another tray. Chaos erupted. Dax kicked over an equipment cart, sending surgical tools flying. 2 of them were sharp enough to embed in the nearest Vrexian warrior's scales, making him roar in pain. Dax followed up by grabbing a medical scanner and smashing it. The device exploded in a shower of sparks and electromagnetic pulse that made all the electronics in the room scream and die. The emergency lights went out. Red backup lighting kicked in, dimmer and flickering. Riley rolled off the examination table. It hurt like hell, but she managed, and pushed it forward. The heavy table slid across the corrosive gel-slicked floor and slammed into the second Vrexian warrior's legs. He went down hard, all 4 arms flailing. Zarlith moved like death itself. She leaped over the chaos, all 4 clawed hands reaching for Riley. But Riley wasn't where she'd been. She'd anticipated the move and rolled under another medical table. Zarlith's claws shredded the table. Metal screeched, but by then Dax was there, slamming into her with a tackle that probably hurt him more than her, but bought precious seconds. "The door!" Riley shouted. She was crawling now, ribs screaming, heading for the ruined doorway. Torva, the Mandorian medical officer, stood frozen, her 6 eyes tracking the carnage destroying her medical bay. Her tusks clicked rapidly with stress. This is completely against... You're destroying millions of credits worth of..." "Sorry about that," Riley grunted, pulling herself past the downed Vrexian warrior who was trying to stand on the gel-slicked floor and failing spectacularly. Dax broke away from Zarlith, dove after Riley. The bone-white Vrexian pursued, but one of her warriors, trying to help, stepped directly into her path on the slippery floor. They tangled together, all 8 arms flailing. Riley and Dax made it through the doorway into the corridor beyond. Red emergency lighting flickered there too, casting everything in hellish shadows. They could hear the roars of rage behind them as Zarlith and her warriors sorted themselves out. "That bought us maybe 20 seconds, Dax said, breathing hard. He grabbed Riley's arm, helped her move faster. "Got a plan for the next part?" "Working on it," Riley wheezed. Every step felt like her ribs were made of broken glass. The corridor stretched before them, lined with pipes and conduits. Other medical bay doors dotted the walls. In the distance, they could hear the crowd in the arena above, still going wild from the earlier match. Behind them, footsteps. Heavy. Fast. Getting closer. "Riley," Dax said urgently. "Whatever you're working on, work faster." Then Riley saw it. Maintenance hatch in the floor, marked with alien script she couldn't read, but with a universal symbol she understood perfectly. Danger, do not enter, pressure systems. She grinned, tasting blood. "I have an idea." "Why do I hate your ideas?" Dax muttered, but he was already moving to the hatch. They reached it just as Zarlith and her warriors burst into the corridor, blocking one direction. The warriors' plasma blades hummed, casting purple light across their obsidian scales. Zarlith's bone-white scales seemed to glow in the red emergency lighting. "Enough running," Zarlith said, her cold amber eyes fixed on Riley. "Face your death with honor." Riley knelt by the hatch, fingers finding the release mechanism. "Here's the thing about honor," she said. "It's not really a human concept." She yanked the hatch open. Pressure systems didn't mean water or air. In a station like this, it meant atmosphere recycling at high pressure, concentrated oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases being pushed through the ventilation network. The hatch erupted with a roar of compressed air. The force was enough to blast Riley and Dax backward, but they'd been braced for it. Zarlith and her warriors, caught mid-charge, took the full force. All 3 Vrexians were blown backward down the corridor like leaves in a hurricane, their massive bodies helpless against the pressure wave. Alarms started screaming. The entire section went into emergency lockdown. Blast doors began dropping from the ceiling at intervals, sealing off the pressure breach. Riley and Dax ran, or rather, Dax ran while supporting Riley's hobbling scramble. Behind them they could hear Zarleth's roar of fury, but it was getting fainter as blast doors cut off pursuit. They burst through a doorway into an equipment staging area just as the final blast door slammed shut behind them. The alarms here were muffled, distant. Emergency lighting still bathed everything in red, but the immediate danger had passed. Riley collapsed against a crate, breathing hard, every inch of her body screaming. Okay, that worked better than expected. Dax leaned against the wall, looking at her with a mixture of exasperation and admiration. You just breached station atmosphere systems, caused a facility-wide emergency, and probably made the arena's most dangerous family want you dead even more. Yeah, but we're alive. For now, a voice said from the shadows. Both humans spun. In the dim red lighting, a figure emerged. Venix, the Silthar announcer, floated in her energy field, serpentine body coiling slowly. Her 3 vertical green eyes glowed in the darkness. The bioluminescent patterns across her iridescent purple-silver scales pulsed with a color Riley hadn't seen before. Deep blue. Relax, Venix said, raising her body in what might have been the Silthar equivalent of raised hands. I'm not here to kill you. Quite the opposite. Dax's hand moved to a piece of broken pipe he'd grabbed from the corridor. Then why are you here? Because what you just did in the arena has created a very interesting situation. Venix's scales rippled thoughtfully. And situations create opportunities. Riley wiped blood from her mouth. Not interested in being anyone's opportunity. Not even if it gets you off this station alive. Venix floated closer, her energy field humming softly. Zarleth won't stop. She has family honor to restore and connections throughout the arena syndicate. You're trapped on a station where half the population wants to kill you and the other half wants to bet on it happening. So, what are you offering? Dax asked, voice hard with suspicion. Venix's 3 green eyes gleamed. A deal. You fight for us. Really fight. Not just exhibition matches. We have enemies who need tactical solutions. In return, we get you transportation off this station, new identities, and enough credits that you can disappear anywhere in the sector. You want us to be assassins, Riley said flatly. I want you to be what you already are, Venix corrected. Humans who are very good at breaking things stronger than them. The only difference is you'll be breaking things we choose, and getting paid extremely well for it. Riley and Dax exchanged glances. A whole conversation happened in that look, the kind only people who'd fought together could have. And if we refuse? Riley asked. Venix's scales shifted from blue to purple. Calculation. Then I walk away. The blast doors open in approximately 3 minutes when the emergency override kicks in, and Zarleth finds you. I give you 12 minutes to live after that. She's very creative with her kills. More alarms blared in the distance. Footsteps echoed from somewhere above. The station was in full emergency mode, which meant security would be flooding the area soon. We need time to think about it, Dax said. You have 30 seconds, Venix replied. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed impatiently. Riley looked at the sealed blast door behind them. Looked at the equipment staging area around them, supplies, tools, but no real weapons. Looked at Dax's weathered face, saw the same calculation happening there. They were injured, trapped, hunted, and outgunned. But that was just Thursday for humans. 20 seconds, Venix said. Riley pushed herself upright, every rib protesting. She met the Silthar's 3 green eyes directly. Before we answer, I need to know something. What? The things you want us to break. Are they things that deserve breaking? Venix's scales rippled with something that might have been amusement. Does it matter? You're about to die if you don't agree. It matters to us, Dax said quietly. Might not make sense to you, but humans are weird about that kind of thing. For a long moment, Venix just floated there, studying them. Her energy field hummed. Her scales shifted through colors. Purple, blue, green, back to purple. Like she was genuinely thinking about the question. Yes, she finally said. The targets we have in mind deserve break-in. They're not honorable opponents like Krethos. They're slavers, weapons dealers, territory bosses who rule through fear and violence. Her 3 eyes narrowed. Does that satisfy your strange human morality? Riley looked at Dax. Dax looked at Riley. One condition, Riley said. We pick our own methods. You tell us what needs breaking, but we decide how. Agreed, Venix said immediately. Your methods in the arena today proved far more effective than anything we could have planned. And we're not doing this forever, Dax added. 6 jobs. Then we're done, and you give us what you promised. Venix's scales flashed yellow. Negotiation mode. 8 jobs. 6, Riley said firmly. We're not interested in becoming your permanent employees. The Silthar's body coiled tighter, then relaxed. 6 jobs, but they're my choice of targets, and you complete them within 4 months. Deal, Riley said. A blast door somewhere above. Them screeched. The emergency override beginning. They had maybe 1 minute before the section reopened. Venix floated to a wall panel, her serpentine body moving with fluid grace. She touched something with her energy field, and a hidden door hissed open, revealing a maintenance tunnel beyond. This way, quickly. Dax helped Riley move toward the tunnel. As they reached it, Riley paused and looked back at the sealed blast door. Behind it somewhere, Zarlith and her warriors were waiting. She's going to come after us eventually, Riley said. You know that, right? Of course, Venix replied, already disappearing into the tunnel. Her voice echoed back. That's job number 6. Zarlith has been a problem for the Syndicate for years. Honor-bound family vendettas are bad for business. Her scales glowed in the tunnel's darkness. I'm counting on you to solve that problem. Riley and Dax exchanged another look. Then Riley laughed. A real laugh this time, not a pained wheeze. She just hired us to kill the person trying to kill us. Efficient, Dax admitted. They entered the tunnel. The hidden door hissed shut behind them. Emergency lighting flickered overhead. Red, then white, then red again. The tunnel sloped downward into darkness. Somewhere behind them, blast doors opened. Zarlith's roar of rage echoed through the entire section, a sound of pure fury that made the metal walls vibrate. But Riley and Dax were already gone, moving through the station's hidden spaces, following a floating serpent into whatever fresh hell they'd just agreed to. Riley's ribs hurt. Her whole body hurt. They'd just traded one deadly situation for a slightly less immediately deadly situation. They'd become mercenaries for an arena syndicate, and they had 6 jobs to complete before they could even think about escaping. But they were alive. And in the arena, against a champion 4 times her size, she'd proven something important. Humans might be weaker, slower, and more fragile than most species in the galaxy. But they were really, really good at winning anyway. The tunnel opened into a transport hub. A small ship waited there, sleek, fast, unmarked. Venix's energy field pulsed with satisfaction as she floated toward it. First job starts in 3 days, she said over her shoulder. Rest up. You'll need it. Riley climbed into the ship, fighting back groans of pain. Dax followed, settling into the co-pilot seat. Through the viewport, they could see the arena structure rising above them, a massive complex of metal and lights and violence. Somewhere in there, thousands of aliens were still screaming about the fight they'd witnessed, betting on what would happen next, placing wagers on whether the humans would survive their first assassination job. The odds, Riley was sure, were not in their favor. But that was fine. She'd always liked beating the odds. The ship's engines hummed to life. They lifted away from the station, acceleration pressing Riley back into her seat. Her ribs screamed. She ignored them. Dax was pulling up data files on the ship's computer. Information on their first target, probably. His weathered face was set in concentration, already planning. Riley watched the arena station shrink behind them, becoming just another point of light among thousands in the darkness of space. "Hey, Dax," she said quietly. "Yeah? Thanks for not letting me die back there." He glanced at her, cracked a small smile. "Thanks for making it interesting." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The arena disappeared. Ahead of them lay 6 jobs, countless aliens who wanted them dead,